Hello, this is Charles, and this is Chapter 5 of Going Home. Chapter 4 saw Nathan and Myrtle at a baseball game where Myrtle met a player I remember all too well from my childhood. Don Gullett has sadly since passed away since I wrote this book, but I just couldn't write that chapter without including a member of the greatest team to ever take the field. I didn't want to put one of the obvious household names that made up the lineup of that team, so I figured on a pitcher, and he was the first one who came to mind. Now they're moving on, and we will see what happens next in Chapter 5, coming up. Chapter 5. In the morning, Nathan fired off a quick email to his boss letting him know it would take a bit longer to make it back, and they ate a quick breakfast, said their goodbyes to Mark and Evelyn, and set off. They were just pulling out when Myrtle said, "You know where Oxford is, Nate? Just head that way." "I've been there a couple times, but not since Dad was alive. He took me up there to visit friends once and another time to go to a Miami football game." "Just go west on 275 and head north up 27. Coleraine exit." "Okay, but why do you want to go that way?" "Actually, we're going a little past Oxford. I have something I want to show you. Since you surprised me, it's my turn to surprise you." While driving up 27, Nathan's cell phone rang, startling them both. He saw the number on the caller ID and said, "Looks like work. I'd better take it." Putting his Bluetooth on his ear, he pressed a button to take the call and answered. "Nathan, Frank here. Just got your email, so what's the delay?" "I'm bringing my grandmother back with me." "Couldn't get her on the same flight or something?" "We're not flying. She has a thing with flying, medical condition or something." "You're driving back here? With your grandmother? How long do you figure it taking? We were kind of expecting you back. We have to get a patch out this week, and we need you working on it." "I have a laptop with me. I can work on things a bit at night when we stop." "I'm not sure that's going to cut it. I wish you would have told us ahead of time." "I didn't know ahead of time. This was kind of sudden." "Well, Nathan, I don't know. Keep an eye on your email. I'll be in touch." With that, Nathan's boss ended the call, and Myrtle, hearing the tone of the conversation, asked, "Is something wrong at work, Nate? That didn't sound good." "Everything will probably be okay. Frank was a little miffed that I'm going to be getting back later than originally planned. But I had the PTO days, so it shouldn't be a big deal." "Honey, I don't know if that sounded like everything is okay. You said you were in for a promotion." "Yeah, supervisor position. I'm qualified for it, and I have the seniority. There's no reason to give it to someone else. Unless that someone else is there when you're not, and doing everything he can to impress the boss." "I don't know about that." "Nate, I've been around the block a few more times than you have. I've seen that sort of thing happen before. Why do you think your grandfather went into business for himself?" "I just assumed he always wanted to open up a garage." "He had another job right after college. Thought he would be there his whole life. But he got passed over for a couple promotions. Guys who didn't know the job as well as he did, but were always the boss's yes man, and he finally got fed up and left. He was always a good mechanic, so it wasn't that hard to get the proper certifications and open up a shop. He wasn't much of a businessman at first, and we struggled for a couple years until he got the help he needed and got everything sorted out right. You know the rest of the story." "Yeah, 6 locations in New York and New Jersey. Callahan's has a good reputation. Will probably be still going strong when I'm your age." And I couldn't be more proud of what he built, but it all started because he didn't know how to play office politics. You just watch things here. The more things change, you don't think they'll pass me up, do you? For someone who doesn't know the job as well as I do? That sort of thing has been going on in companies since way before your time, dear. Anyway, when you come to Oxford, just stay on 27 and go on out of town into Indiana. I think I can remember the roads." Nathan drove into Oxford, spotted the United Dairy Farmers, and pulled in. "What flavor do you want, Grandma?" "Flavor? Milkshake. We can't leave this area without having a UDF shake, can we? That's the one thing I missed after coming to live with you guys. Dad used to take me all the time." "Strawberry sounds good, but just a small one." Nathan came out a few minutes later with milkshakes and then proceeded out of town and into Indiana. Myrtle looked deep in thought and finally popped up. Highway 101 South. You'll take 101 South from a small town called Liberty. They came to Highway 101 and Myrtle remarked that Liberty didn't seem too different since the last time she was there. Nathan headed south and had been driving for a few minutes when Myrtle said, "Take the next right, that's the road." "West Dunlapsville Road?" "That's it, I'm sure of it." And shortly after Nathan made that turn, "Take this next left and take that road until it ends. There should be a driveway at the end when we get near the water." Nathan made the left turn on West Hops Road, and eventually the road came to an end, with a small gravel drive turning off. "Take the gravel road, Nate. I wonder if it's still there." "You wonder if what is still there?" "Doesn't look like anything's back here. You sure you remember this place right?" "I could never forget this place." Just then, Nathan rounded a bend in the gravel drive and came upon a badly kept parking lot next to an even poorer kept building, little more than a shack, which sat no more than 50 yards from the shore of Brookville Lake. A small wooden pier jutted a few yards into the lake with an assortment of metal rowboats and canoes tied up. A sign advertised prices for renting the boats. The building, a weather-beaten affair with wooden siding that had been painted over more times than anyone could remember, a flat roof and old metal gutters that leaked in spots and had also been painted to somewhat match the siding, was much as Myrtle remembered it, although somewhat more run down looking than it had been 58 years ago, and still had the same faded sign on the roof: Jarhead Bait and Tackle. "This is definitely the place," exclaimed Myrtle with barely contained youthful glee. "This old place? Is this the big surprise you had for me? Looks like it's seen better days." "Well, let's go inside and see how much has changed, shall we?" "Okay, but before we go in, you have to tell me what's so special about an old rundown bait shop." "Why, dear, this is where your grandfather proposed to me." "Wait a minute. Grandpa proposed to you at a bait shop in Indiana? What were you doing here anyway?" "We came here to see my parents. Dad insisted on meeting Patrick when things started getting serious, so we took a trip here that summer. After we went to church with my parents, Patrick and I came up here to go fishing." "And he proposed to you here at the bait shop?" "No, silly. We rented a boat and went out on the lake. It was quite romantic, I assure you. Let's go in the shop and see about getting a boat, just for old time's sake." "Okay, Grandma, but do you think anyone's here?" "Someone has to be driving that," she said, pointing to a black pickup truck that looked like it had also seen better days. As they approached the door, they could hear what sounded like gunfire and shouting from inside, followed by a man exclaiming, "Come on, man, quit cheating. How do you get me in the back every time?" Myrtle was perplexed at what she heard, but Nathan was already grinning as he pushed open the door. Upon entering, he spotted the source of the noise, a rather large man with his back to the front door, completely filling up a protesting office chair and clutching an Xbox controller in both hands while still yelling at the TV. Right as Nathan walked in, the man yelled once again, "Man, this thing cheats. Always shooting me in the back, and I never see them before they shoot. Darn monkeys." Next to the man's chair was an equally large dog that seemed immune to his master's tirades and only acknowledged their entrance with a slight lift of his head and an almost imperceptible whine. "Holy smokes, that is one large dog," Myrtle thought to herself. Nathan walked around the counter, stood next to the man, and said, "The game's not cheating. The enemy just has good situational awareness, which you apparently don't." "You ever play this game?" the man asked without turning around. "Oh, maybe a couple times." "Here then, see if you can do any better," the man replied, turning around and handing Nathan the controller. Nathan took the controller and appraised the man before he sat down at the Xbox. He was indeed a large man, probably close to 300 pounds, but it wasn't all flab. There was some muscle underneath the padding, perhaps not that toned any longer and certainly not what it used to be, but still there and probably still formidable. He had close cropped hair and a couple days' stubble on a round, friendly face. I'm sure I can. Just watch. Nathan took the controller and said as you played, Look here. You just ran into the room. If you take your time and watch your surroundings, you will see one bad guy over there before you enter the room. You take him out with one shot, then move quickly to that cover here. Take out the other guy over there, and then move quickly to that side of the room. If you have the rest of your squad take up a covering position right here, they can sweep the rest of the room and take out the rest of the bad guys as they try to take you out while you're moving. Just like that, see? Before the man took the controller back, he stuck out his hand at Nathan and said, I'm Thad, and you are? I'm Nathan. Well, Nathan, you're pretty good. How'd you get that good at that game? I've had a hard time with it. I work for Tempest. I program the AI. So you helped make the game? Man, I'm impressed. I know how to turn my computer on and get on the internet, and I'd love to play games, but I wouldn't know the least thing about how to make one. Mister, is that dog friendly? Asked Myrtle at that moment, as the dog lifted its 250-pound bulk off the floor and started approaching her. Oh, Oliver don't bite nobody. He might lick you to death is all. What kind of dog is he? Is he part horse? He's an old English Mastiff. You heard of them? I've heard of them, just didn't realize they were that big. What does he eat? Asked Myrtle as she scratched the dog's ears. He eats whatever he wants. What brings you in today? Don't get many customers this time of day. Just a few people come in for bait in the morning mostly. My grandson and me were thinking about taking a boat out for a bit, just to look around the lake. You know, I was here with my husband back in '58. Your place has the same sign, and you kind of look like the fellow who was here, but you can't be. He'd be in his 90s by now. That was my granddad. He started this place after the war. After the war? Yep, World War II. Grandpa was a Marine, got wounded at Iwo Jima, and was sent home. Married Grandma in '45 and opened up this place. Been in the family ever since. I took over when I got out of the Marines and needed a job. Dad didn't want to mess with it. Suits me just fine, though. I get to fish as often as I'd ever want, and it brings in enough to pay the bills. That's nice. So how much for one of the boats? You got anything with a motor? I got a trolling motor I can put on one of the rowboats. I'll let you take one out for nothing, seeing as you met my granddad. Oh, that's nice of you, but we can pay you for the boat. That won't be necessary. It's my treat. But if you want to fish some, I can sell you some bait. I'm not sure my grandson here has ever handled a fishing pole in his life. Grandpa took me out a few times, but I never caught anything, Nathan said. Well, I'll tell you what, Thad replied. If you want to fish, I'll have a couple extra poles around here. I can let you use one as long as you bring it back in one piece. Oh, you don't have to bother with, Nathan was saying when Myrtle interrupted. Nathan would love to borrow one of your poles. Thad disappeared outside to prepare the boat while Myrtle and Nathan looked around the shop. Not much had changed since she had last been there, except for the TV in the corner and the slightly newer cash register. Some of the pictures on the wall were the same, and there were newer ones added. Mostly photos of various customers holding up a vast array of impressive catches. Myrtle wandered over to one wall where a Marine Corps flag hung proudly, and underneath it were photos of men in uniform. One she recognized and pointed out to Nathan. Look, Nate, here's the man who ran the place back in '58. And look, here's the young man who's in charge now. Looking pretty trim, if you ask me. Wow, he's changed a bit since then. That must have been a few years ago, looking at what he looks like now. Watch what you say, young man. Things have a way of catching up with you when you hit your 40s. Meet the family, Thad said from behind them as he came back in. The oldest one is my grandpa. You can see the Purple Heart right there on his chest. The other two are my great uncles who were in Korea, and you probably recognize the handsome fellow in the other photo. When was that photo taken? Asked Nathan. Oh, nearly 20 years ago. I was 23 in that picture. You're in a bit better shape then, too. Some military service runs in your family? Yep, all but my brothers. Well, you'd think you would be better at shooters then, Nathan said playfully. Watch it, buddy. That fellow there would testify to how well I can shoot. Nathan followed his pointing finger to a mounted head of a 12-point buck on the wall opposite the Marine flag. Got that one just last year. A friend of mine has some acreage down in Cincinnati. Lets me hunt there every year. Anyway, your boat is ready. Left you a couple poles and some live bait. There's also a stringer there if you want to keep your catch. I usually toss them back, though. Cleaning them's just too much trouble. Nathan and Myrtle got settled into the boat, a 16-foot aluminum rowboat with 2 bench seats, with a trolling motor affixed to the stern. There were oars in the bottom of the boat, the fishing poles and containers of bait, a tackle box, and a cooler. Thad quickly showed Nathan how to operate the motor and said, "That won't go too fast, but it'll get you around all the best spots without you wearing yourself out with the oars. And you can help yourself to what's in the cooler." "Thanks, mister," Nathan replied as he shoved off and operated the motor. It didn't take long for him to get acquainted with operating the motor and steering the boat in roughly the direction he wanted to go. It was really quite enjoyable. The last time he had been in a boat, his grandfather had done everything while he just sat there and enjoyed the ride. "Nate, honey, just stay close to the shore here on the left and go around the bend." "What's back there?" "The lake bends around to the left, just up there. You see where it branches off that way? It goes back into those trees." "You can remember all that from those years ago?" "When you get to be my age, the stuff long ago is easy to remember, but what you had for lunch yesterday is a challenge." Nathan steered the boat back the inlet into an area where the lake narrowed and the shore was lined with trees. There was a fair amount of shade near the shore, which made the temperature more pleasant. He looked at his grandmother, and she was just sitting there with a smile on her face and her eyes shut. He had rarely seen her happier. Without opening her eyes, Myrtle said, "You going to try your hand by fishing a bit?" "I don't know. Let me see what's in this cooler first." Nathan opened the cooler, found it full of ice, cans of Coke, and bottles of sweet tea. "What do you want, Grandma, Coke or tea?" "You have to ask. I'll take the tea." Nathan got his grandmother a bottle of tea and a Coke for himself and began to prepare one of the fishing poles. He got it fixed as well as he could remember, according to what his grandfather had taught him. There was a hook, a sinker, bait, and a bobber. He dropped the line in the water and sat there expectantly, an expectation that quickly turned to boredom as nothing seemed to be happening. "Grandpa always seemed to catch something," he commented. "Your grandpa caught 3 bass that day. Then he proposed." "He proposed after catching fish?" "Yes. We were right over there near the shore. I could tell something was on his mind, but he just sat there with the line in the water. They were biting good that day. He threw back about 6 that were too small, but he kept 3 good-sized bass. After the 3rd one, he just had this big grin on his face. A big, bashful grin, and he kept staring at me. You see, Nate, he was a bit like you. Kind of shy-like. He said my name half a dozen times and kept pausing, like he was trying to figure out what to say, and he kept looking down at the fish that were still moving around in the bottom of the boat. Then he mumbled at first, and I had to ask him to repeat himself because I couldn't hear him. Then he just blurted out, never taking his eye off the fish, "What do you think about marrying me?" Then he looked up at me, and he looked scared as heck. And I took one look at those big puppy dog eyes, and all I could do was just lean over and kiss him. He took that as a yes. All that happened right here on this lake, in a boat much like this one. It all seems like yesterday. Oh, God. She broke off, choking back the tears that were starting to flow. "You okay, Grandma?" I think so. Just miss him so much. You spend all those years with someone that drives you crazy sometimes. There were times that just looking at him would make my blood boil. And I thought he was the dumbest man on the face of the earth. Times I was so mad at him I couldn't see straight. Now I look back and I can't even remember all the things he did to anger me. But I remember clearly the moments like that day at this lake. On the day we lost our first baby, he just held me without saying anything, just let me cry until I didn't think I could cry any longer. There was the day your dad was born, and then the day your dad died. I didn't think I could make it, but there he was, my personal rock of Gibraltar. You think you love someone at the beginning, but those are just emotions. You look at that person and your knees feel weak, your heart skips a beat, and you could hardly control your voice. Those times are great, but that's not really love, Nate. You don't know what love is until it's all you have. When that person does something to wound you and you feel so angry you want to scream, cry, and shout all at once, and then you realize you have a choice to make. You have to choose whether or not what you said at the altar is true, whether you really meant it. When you have to make the decision to love someone, not necessarily because you feel like it at the moment, but because you know it's the right thing to do, to follow through on the promises you made when you felt like it. Then you know what love is. Love is not a feeling, Nate. It's a decision. And you know what? I love him more now than I did that day. And I will continue loving him until, Lord willing, I will go to see him again. Nathan was so wrapped up in listening to his grandmother that he hardly noticed the bobber dipping under the water until she said, "Nate, you're getting a bite." Nathan tried to remember what his grandpa had taught him about fishing, but that had been almost 10 years ago. Nevertheless, he felt the line go taut, gave the pole a jerk, and realized the fish was hooked. He reeled in the line only to find a small bluegill, hardly bigger than his hand. He gently removed the hook and put the fish back into the water, saying, "There you go, little buddy, swim away now." Over the next hour, he caught and released 4 more of the same, and then when he least expected it, he hooked another fish, and this time he realized he had a big one on the line. Myrtle exclaimed, "Oh, Nate, I think you got a good one there." Nathan reeled in the line a bit, and then trying to position himself to get more leverage, lost his footing and started to fall. Just then the fish, no doubt realizing his moment of opportunity, swam deep and fast to get away, snatching the pole clean out of Nathan's hands, never to be seen again. Nathan landed awkwardly in the bottom of the boat, hitting his head on the bench seat and momentarily seeing stars. He got himself back onto the seat and, holding his head, noticed to his utter dismay that his grandma was laughing. She composed herself quickly and said, "Sorry, honey, I couldn't laugh at your expense, but that was a rather comical sight." "Wasn't so comical from here," Nathan said, rubbing his head. "You're not bleeding, but you'll have a bit of a bruise and a bit of a story to tell as well." "Yeah, a heck of a story, and I lost that nice man's good fishing pole." Well, I hope you enjoyed Chapter 5. If so, please like and subscribe. Stay tuned for more chapters from this book and others. For more information about my other work, check out the links in the description below. Take care, and I'll see you on the next one.